Welcome back, everyone, to Red Spotlight Entertainment. This is another installment of our audio commentary slash reaction series. I am Alexis Soto, and I'm joined today by David Francisco and Alexys Moreno. Um, Last time we did one of these for a different Disney movie. That was the 2023 version of The Little Mermaid, directed by Rob Marshall and starring Halle Bailey. If you're so inclined, you're more than welcome to go and look at that reaction. It was a blast. Well, I guess looking at it would be like a blast. A lot of it we weren't necessarily having as much fun for, considering what we knew would be the end result. Anyway, of course, this is Red Spotlight. We dive into all the things movies whenever we can. And just before we even started doing this show, we were talking about all the things that we have coming up in March, and I want to die. It's so much that it is unbelievably nauseating. Now, this one is also going to be interesting because, similarly, also how it was the first time around, I am someone who hasn't seen this, whereas the other two here had already seen this. So, in fact, they saw it in the theater this time, unlike Little Mermaid 2023. Um, and they were one of the $400 million gross bunch that this movie made at the domestic and I believe also worldwide box office. Um, yes, I got to tell you, I think like just to get straight with it, this is Elemental. This is directed by Peter Sohn, correct?
Yes.
Um, which is his follow-up to The Good Dinosaur, if I'm not mistaken, at Pixar. Um, in the last couple of years, yeah, with us, with our group, with this podcast, we have in a lot of ways grown in the same directions, and I think a part of that growth involves taste. Um, and with that also comes in frustration. And I can certainly say that last year kind of was the realization of all those frustrations just kind of setting in. For example, last year was the first time I like, well, hold on before I even say that. Yeah, last year was the first year I actually skipped a couple of Marvel MCU projects and have not bat an eye. And last year was like the first year in like as many years as we've been doing this that I didn't see a Disney animated studios feature in theaters, and B, a Pixar animation studios feature in theaters. I will say I have since rectified that. I made it up to Pixar by watching Turning Red last week. So I think I think in some ways that would help, in their own little way, in my own little way. And as far as the animation is concerned, I do feel bad honestly because like for a long time I have been like a card carrying Disney member, It's like and a Pixar member, it kind of uh it comes with the stuff that you get to do when you sign your life away to the cult of the mouse. Although I guess for many of us on this podcast, I guess we can consider ourselves lapsed cultists in that lately we've had very, very few things that are positive to say about anything involving the mouse. That's up and down all the film studios, and then also the individual personalities at the head of the company, and then also the parks. Don't even get us started on the parks and that nightmare of a situation. So, what started out as a beautiful podcast about all these positive things about the friendliest, loveliest corporation in the world ended into a rather depressing situation that ended up costing a couple of podcasts their life, it turns out. That's just me diving into the personal history of this podcast network. My point being is, for as positive as I really was on the whole of animation, Disney Animation and Pixar. Um, I couldn't bring myself to watch either Elemental or Wish in theaters, and I think what didn't help was the fact that both of those movies came out at a time where literally everything else around it was like hogging up all the attention. When Elemental came out, there was like, and by the way, in retrospect, I acknowledge that I chose to see inferior films, but there were bigger films, and we needed to talk about those movies on the show, such as The Flash, such as Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Still a
Um,
Disney movie.
Still a Disney movie, as a matter of fact. So hey, there's that. I did not see Haunted Mansion, although that was also out at the same
I
time.
forgot that was a thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so did everybody else. At the same time, it was also Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning, and Barbenheimer. So that all was coalescing at the same time. There was also the Jennifer Lawrence film, No Hard Feelings. Like there's things that were happening in that particular.
Turtles.
Yes. So it just for Elemental, it just kind of got lost. Like, and the thing about Elemental is because of I don't know what it was about it. I felt somewhat disinterested and disconnected. And also Lightyear was really bad. Like Lightyear was to me, I think Lightyear is easily the single worst movie that Pixar has ever made.
I don't know why we watched it.
Watched what?
Like,
Elemental?
yeah, like I
Oh.
mean, I know I would be the one to go watch this one,
Mhm.
but like I don't know what caused for us to be like, yeah, let's go watch this one. Um and then we did watch it, and I realized that the marketing for this movie was so bad.
Yeah.
And I fully went in thinking, not really understanding what they were trying to do, and like not like I just didn't think it was gonna be the movie that we got. So it was like a really good surprise, I think.
Mm. And honestly, it's like you guys enjoyed it rather thoroughly from what I understand, and you've been singing its praises for months and months and months now. It also seems to have gotten lost in the shuffle. Um, and I think that happens to be because it's been quite an exceptional year for animated movies.
Mhm.
I think it's rather positive because for once we're not talking about either a Disney or a Pixar film and seeing, oh, which one of the Disney owned studios is going to win the Academy Award for animated feature. It's a nice change of pace, but that also I think all just speaks to how far the mighty have fallen, right? Because they used to dominate everything, and then two of them came out in the same year, and they seem to be among the least talked about films, among the least talked about movies of not just this year, but also some of the least talked about films that they've done in the last few years. And we've all been saying, and I gotta admit also, what left a particularly bad taste in my mouth was the idea that it wasn't just these two, but particularly Luca and Turning Red were not put in theaters and were not given that push that left. And then, of course, what did end up going in theaters, I think Lightyear really just did it for me. Lightyear was just like so unbelievably bad. And it wasn't bad. It's like, wow, like you're actively watching the worst movie ever made. It's not one of those movies. It's one of those movies where like after you've seen it and the more you think about how utterly useless that was, then you begin to really piece together how truly awful it is in the canon of Pixar movies.
Yeah.
And
It's
yeah.
like it just is it's like it's a bad movie, but when you put it to Pixar standards, it's a really bad movie.
Yeah, like I mean, we're talking about a movie that's so bad. And that isn't to say that Pixar hasn't made films that were less than good before, but I think they still got a great track record. And if I'm looking at the bottom of the barrel, I still would pick Cars 2 and Incredibles 2 over watching Lightyear again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that should tell you just how, you know, and then after Lightyear, that's the thing about last year. Last year was Elemental and Wish. You had a Pixar, Disney animated film. To an extent, overall, they both underperformed in the sense that they just didn't dominate any discussion. They kept being, they just were lost. Elemental, to its credit, did have a really pretty box office record, and we can't take that away from it, considering that really was one of the only profitable, the closest to being profitable
Yeah.
animated movies that Disney has released since COVID. Because the
Mhm.
other ones have not. The other ones have lost so much money. Encanto lost money.
Yeah. Encanto lost so much money.
If Encanto didn't stand a chance, no one hell did. All the other ones. And I almost even forgot also, because of course this also involves another forgettable film. Last year was not just or I should say 2022 was not just the year of Lightyear, but also Strange World.
Ooh.
Which
I still
people
have not seen.
I haven't seen
also
either.
keep. I actually did see that one, but I saw it on Disney Plus, and it's not awful.
Okay.
It's not awful. In fact, I'd say it's a lot better than Lightyear. I'll give it that. It's a lot better than Lightyear, but it is very forgettable. It
They
is
also made
very
it that
forgettable.
way
Yeah.
to themselves.
So it's like you could say that Elemental was a hit in that sense, but on the whole, in terms of like discussion, this is 2 years in a row where like 4 animated films, all of which have just been lost in a way. Last year, was it last year? I keep forgetting what year I'm in. I mean, so
I know you keep saying last year and
I know 2022, 2020. Okay, this is what made it even worse. I forgot that Turning Red was in 22. I thought it was 21. What made it even fucking worse is that Turning Red came out the same year as Lightyear, but one was in theaters and one was not. That made it even more worse. That's why I was so pissed off. Now I'm remembering. Like, oh man, in my mind, I'm still like not in 2024 mode. I'm still, when I say last year, I mean 2022.
I still think 2020 was a few months ago.
It was 4 years. 4 years ago, in the next month or so, we would be reacting to the Clone Wars final season.
We would be going in lockdown in about a month. Not even, like 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Jeez.
Onward would be coming out in 2 weeks. 4 years.
Oh.
Yeah.
That one was short-lived.
Like the father in the movie. Yeah, that's what I meant. It's also short. It's also short when he came back, because half of them came back. That was an interesting movie. That we all enjoyed. That was enjoyable. Some of the more recent ones have not. Like, it's just, again, it's the stroke of luck. During COVID, during lockdown, you had Soul, Raya, Encanto, Luca, and Turning Red among Pixar and Disney. And I'll even include Onward, because it didn't even get to finish its theatrical run. So if you include Onward, Soul, Raya, Encanto, Turning Red, and Luca, I mean, they're not all of the same quality, but they were all different and they were all enjoyable in their own right. And what a streak of originality. The kind of originality that had been begged of these studios for about a decade. And when they deliver on that originality, a global pandemic happens. And then even after most of it had subsided, the idiot in chief decided to keep just dropping them on their internet service, streaming service. And so audiences at large would forever then think that, oh, well, I no longer need to pay to watch these in theaters. I can just watch them at home. Thank you, Bob Papecheck. And then when they begin to release animated films in theaters, bomb after historic bomb, like the likes of which you've never seen. Encanto got its ass kicked by Sing 2. That was released at the exact same time. Now, again, who the fuck is Sing 2 to Encanto now, as far as the cultural cachet is concerned? But the point is, does Disney care as much about that as they do about the bare bones dollars that are being made? No, they would prefer to have what Sing 2 made. And that's a
Mm-hmm.
pretty big fucking problem when Illumination is kicking your ass.
Yeah.
I believe also what made it even worse was this past November when Wish was out in theaters, and it was not only it was being beaten by several animation studios. It came in fourth behind Studio Ghibli and DreamWorks, which by the way, great for them, great for Ghibli and great for DreamWorks that they've had such an audience that their films were connecting in a way. I mean, to be fair though, Trolls was also underperforming for I think similar reasons. We discussed that back in November, but still, that's how bad Wish was doing. It was beaten by Trolls 3 and then also The Boy and the Heron. Not that The Boy and the Heron didn't deserve to have that, I guess, victory, but still, it's like you wouldn't think that kind of movie would be clobbering
Yeah.
Wish. Wish, like this is supposed to, and this was supposed to be the film to celebrate the 100th anniversary of this company, and that didn't happen. And yet the lows kept coming, the hits kept coming. When the Academy unveiled their long list, or I guess their short list for the preliminary finalists for like original song, not a single one of the Disney songs was included, and that is the first time that's happened in like instance I can remember. And then also, unless I'm mistaken, the Academy Award nominations came out and Wish was not included, correct?
Mm-mm.
It was not.
Nope.
Which that is a particular embarrassment to Disney Animation in particular, and that must have really stung. And I think all of us are really just dying to be a fly on the wall at those rooms right now. And like, what is going on in Disney Animation? Because the sky must be falling. I think at the very least, though, if I'm not mistaken as well, Elemental did get that nomination, though, right? It did get in there for animated film. To be fair, though, Pixar just has more consistency.
Yeah.
Overall, that's just the truth.
And honestly, I feel it's well deserved.
Right. Even though, to be fair, two of us haven't seen Wish, I believe, right?
Yeah.
David's the only one that's seen Wish. So whenever that comes on Disney Plus, that could also be a potential commentary that we do, since I guess we're making a theme of these. And then one other idea, the Marvels also just dropped on Disney Plus, which two of us have seen, one of us has not. So just to put that all into perspective for people going into this, and that's ultimately just to provide as to why some of us saw it and some of us didn't see it. And so I'm expecting, well, actually I'm not quite sure what to expect. I think I'd like to be entertained, and I think I will be. But I also am curious to see what this movie is, because you guys keep saying that the marketing was absolutely atrocious.
Oh yeah.
I think what didn't help the film was that the trailer itself lent a lot. It basically allowed
It gave
for
Zootopia.
Yeah, it did, didn't it?
Well, I was about to say, like, the trailer, it felt like a Illumination kind of story, where it just seems so
Ooh.
basic and everything. The trailer
And
for it,
it's
at least.
not.
Yeah, and but no, when you watch it, you're like, oh, okay, there's more to this than just a love story of sorts. And so
I don't even think you got that. I don't know. I just like I fully did not understand like
the trailer.
what. Yeah.
No, yeah, I understood what the trailer was trying to go for, not, but like it just seems so basic that a water person and a fire person fall in love, and I'm just kind of like, you really needed to show that there's actually more to this than just the love story. And so yeah, and I was gonna mention too, like, I don't understand how Illumination makes so much money, man. Like, I don't watch a lot of them, but like, you can just tell though, like, their stories are so basic. The-
It's a very simple explanation when you subscribe to the ideology that we're currently living in the destruction of society. I mean,
yeah.
it's the
No, yeah,
truth.
like
I mean,
we're kind of seeing it everywhere. I'm on book social media stuff, and you have like people kind of pointing out that um people that are writing books right now, it's kind of turning into like a fast fashion type of thing, because they're just coming out with book after book after book after book just to, and like the consumption of these books, like it's uh making them make more fast paced, and they're not, it's just like it's not like how it was before, where people would just kind of like take time to write these books, right, and like put thought into it and stuff. So I understand like what you're trying to say.
everything is just spiraling down into a society that is unbelievably dumbed down in every regard. I mean, I look, far be it for me to insert politics into this. Oh, look at me, social justice warrior here, right? But I just wanted to remind people that the current front runner to win the presidential election for America this year has been found liable of sexual abuse, defamation, and fraud. And he's got 91 felony counts to go. That's currently who is on top of the polls to win the presidency. Because the other one doesn't know where he is most of the time and can't speak.
We're just
Yeah,
having
I mean,
a grand old time over
yeah,
here.
yeah. If that's how the state of our government is going, everything else, can we expect everything else to go smoothly? No. And it won't. It is just sad though, like all this effort for a pretty horrible year.
Yeah. I would also like to point out that this movie played after the Up short.
So she was already crying
just
and
broke me.
That was a good short. The ending was particularly devastating.
I literally said they were trying to kill me.
Please keep all limbs and branches inside.
It is giving a little Zootopia.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And how do we spell that?
I'm getting a lot of Zootopia.
Yeah.
Actually.
But like in the best way.
Sure, yeah.
Like I would have loved to be in the room of just like, okay, so what if like we do this, and what if we do this, like when it came to the city.
You need to buy one to get one free?
But I just want the free one.
Give me one for free! That's not how this works!
That's fine.
Same.
That felt a lot like work.
Yep.
But I mean, in a different way, in a different context.
Yeah.
It has us all in a broil.
I guess. It's just some of these customers, they get me all...
I know.
You know, this feels rather dumb to say for a Pixar film, but the animation on those flames,
Mhm.
wow.
It looks so like everything just
Wow.
looks so good.
Yeah.
Her, like I love her design.
Right.
Her outfits,
yeah.
like the way that she looks. I love it. And I like that their outfits are like the material that would like hold fire.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's called, but yeah. Like chain? I don't know.
That's what I thought too. Might be like chainmail or something. I don't know.
Yep, nothing. Just a loveless, sad future of sadness.
This is just pushing all the buttons, isn't it?
Yeah. I yeah, it really hit me.
Promise me one thing. Mary, fire.
I love that line. It's so.
That was funny, but was that actually happened? Or was that like a story that she just told?
I think it actually happened.
It happened to the director.
Oh yeah.
That story is why he made this movie.
Oh, whoa! They're all the same. Just take one from the top. Please, fragile. No, wait!
Mind if I test this kettle?
Not her, but everybody else. Do you see what we mean by the destruction of society? Oh, that is bad. That is bad.
That pipe squished me all out of shape. First I'm sucked into a pipe and now the right citations I can get this place shut down. Oh gosh, it's just too much.
That's me with my job, honestly, right there. Especially, it's like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to deny you, and I'm like,
This could get real dicey.
Oh boy, I'm sorry. This is gonna be really disappointing for you.
No.
I love him.
We put everything into it. But then a great storm came. Father understood. We had to leave. It was the last time your father ever saw his family. That is why we came here.
Would not have expected that.
Right? That's
I
what I'm
would
saying.
not have expected that
It's like-
choice.
It's crazy.
You're so hot.
Excuse me?
Today, she's a huge airball fan, and the Windbreakers are finally in the playoffs. Toot toot!
kind of weird that we're seeing this after the Super Bowl.
Right?
Sports.
Yeah.
What the heck?
This is my life we're talking about, not just some game.
Some game?
No, it is a game. It's just a game. It's rather irrational to be concerned this much about a game. Just putting that out there. Whoa.
I
That's-
love him. Stop the waves.
Thank you. Please take all that off.
But I got you a hat.
I'm not sure how I'm feeling about the score so far. Like, for each specific scene, it's really good, but I'm just not sure if it's like all connecting, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, I haven't noticed it.
Really?
I haven't noticed that. I mean, I've only just noticed. Well, maybe. I think scores are maybe more noticeable on rewatch.
Mm-hmm.
Right now I'm kind of in the story and the characters, so
Yeah.
I'm not like really listening to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's good, but I can't critique it on your level because I think you already know the score.
Yeah.
I haven't heard the score before.
Mm-hmm.
The scenery is really good.
I know.
After my dad passed, I got all, what's the point? Now I just go from one job to the next.
Why are these two so relatable?
I know.
What the hell?
I'm literally telling you, I could not handle this movie.
I feel like I know these two, like
I
on a
feel
spiritual
like they're
level.
me.
Sometimes when I lose my temper, I think it's just me trying to tell me something I'm not ready to hear.
That's ridiculous.
You should- I can't deal. It's just like the little subtle comments that have so much like meaning. Ugh. And then I don't know if you've like felt this, but I've definitely felt it like the last maybe 2 years, that like getting older and stuff, and you kind of have to like figure out yourself more, and like
Mhm.
these stupid comments are just like fuck.
I don't know if I felt this, that's my life every day. That's a cool hoodie or sweater. Or shirt.
Yeah.
Oh, he's crying. Oh my god. This guy.
Whoa.
Wow.
Then inspect this.
Or are you in the food inspector? Where? Okay. I think it started where David started.
Oh, then you're good.
Yeah.
You missed the montage.
I know.
You missed the montage.
I know.
I was like,
It's so good.
What is
though.
going on? It's been a really long time since I've seen something that beautifully romantic,
know.
especially in this particular medium. It's like, and look, not that doesn't happen very often, but like, come on, how could you not fall in love with that?
I know.
That was so good. Sorry, I just had to say that. I can't believe you missed that part.
Mm-hmm.
I know. I saw a tweet of somebody saying, what was it? Girls don't want boys, girls want Wade from Elemental.
Hush, Father. It's okay. It's all going to be okay.
I don't know where they thought of the idea of these voices, but there's something about the quality of both of these two that just stands out to me. It just, particularly Wade, just sounds like a voice that I haven't heard before. Is it Mahmoud Afi? He's the voice of Wade, and then Leah Lewis is Ember.
Yeah.
They're both fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And tell him what? That I gotta shut down and destroy his dream?
That may not be the worst development that he would take, I think, at this point.
You have no idea how hard they've worked.
That's actually a really cool detail right there. Using his reflection to get both. That's cool.
I'm a mess.
Nah, I think you're even more beautiful.
Now you understand why I'm telling you they were trying to kill me that day.
It's just, we get so few of these kind of stories anymore. That's that's why I went to go see Anyone But You, because like,
Here, I saved this for you. It's special.
look at that.
Yeah, and I've seen like a bunch of other like movies and shows that try to go for like the himbo, I guess you could say, with it, but like they over exaggerate of like, I guess you could say their dumbness in a sense. I'm not saying like he's particularly dumb or anything like that, but like you just love him because he's like almost like a lovable idiot.
He's just a person.
He's a person. I think there's
He's just understands.
yeah, the himbo thing, I don't know. There's a quality of it to it, but he's not dumb by any means.
Yeah.
He's very endearing. He's very lovable, but he's also very intuitive.
He's just he
can be a dork.
emotionally intelligent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
but he can be
He
a
can be a
dork.
dork. I think a
That-
dork is
that's-
more likely than an idiot.
That's the word that I was thinking of.
Yeah. I was thinking of the guy from. Do you remember it in Dash and Lily Ale?
You are rocking it.
Thank you. Now get in, please.
Oh,
Oh my god, are you okay?
I got you. I got you. That was good.
That one guy. That's what I'm thinking. Like, I think that's what they were trying to go for in the show, but like it wasn't really working for us. And so I think that's what he is, like the perfect version of that.
Yeah.
But you said it perfectly. He's a dork.
I think to me, why I was thinking that word is because I was thinking of Chloe Bennett when she said that about, what's his name? I forget the actor's name, but to describe that dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what's giving a little bit of echoes of this relationship. It's kind of like it's giving off a little bit of the Sousa Quake thing that happened.
Really? Subtle.
Stop.
Cool.
In the time loops, we kind of kissed. Whatever. He's a dork.
At the very end, it's like where he is like very clearly thinks a lot of her more than she thinks of herself.
Yeah.
And yeah, like it's a little bit of that.
Do you die if you fall in water? Whoa!
The stupid kids, get them away. They would accidentally, absolutely kill her.
Just have to say that you speak so well and clear.
Oh, I'm glad Wade looked at him that way. Like, did you see the look on his face?
Yeah.
Ready, go.
Butterfly.
I knew he would do that.
Then you must light these with your fire. See, Ember? It cannot be.
I mean, at that point, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up, because where do you go from there?
It is the highest form of respect, but my father did not return the bow.
I can't.
That's just claustrophobic right there, honestly.
It is, but what other option is there?
I know.
It's
Not
claustrophobia or death. This is what James Cameron wishes he can do with Titanic.
See, like this scene right here, 3 seconds of it would have been great in the trailer. Like, there were so many things in this movie that they just did not put in there, and I think any part
Most
of it.
of this movie wasn't in the trailer.
Yeah.
I'm like, this
No.
was like a whole different like movie
Mm.
than what I was
Yeah.
sold. Oh my god, this is bad. That's bad.
So you are the one who burst the pipes.
What? Not me. It was.
Oh no.
Oh shit.
This is like Parasite all over again.
Oh my god.
That was pretty horrific, honestly. In Parasite, we don't talk about that film a lot. It's an amazing movie, but like that sequence of the flooding in Parasite is like one of the most memorable pieces for devastating reasons. Like, oh
Yeah.
my god.
Man, awash in sadness.
I missed it. What was it crying about now?
He's leaving
yeah.
the city.
The what?
He's
Oh, the
leaving
painting.
the city.
Oh, he was. Oh. Well, at this point, it's not really Parasite, is it? It's more like San Diego last week.
It's the what's it called? The Universal
Oh yeah,
that's where
one of the scariest things you can ever see is people being swept away by water. That's like
yeah.
so scary. Like that movie with Tom Holland and Ewan McGregor, The Impossible.
I haven't seen it
It's
yet.
like, oh, it's a great movie. That's
Yeah.
Tom Holland's first movie.
Mhm.
And still the best performance he ever gave.
Hold the door!
Hodor.
Hold the door!
Hold the door. I just
I really do love it when your light does that.
Deal with it.
Ember, the shop was never the dream. You were the dream.
we needed more alcohol for this.
Half a butterfly.
That's brilliant. That is brilliant.
No, I can't.
Oh, the he finally got to have that back. God, those close-ups. Like the detail.
Need to watch the credits too.
Oh, I did. I don't remember that.
Hi. So, I feel a lot of things right now, but I would say just to if it hasn't already been proven by what we've seen just in the last couple of years by different kinds of films, but definitely the kinds of films that were speaking to something that was, I think, happening to society at large, to families at large, to generational trauma at large, alongside coupling that with some of the old classic stories that we as human beings experience in how it's been expressed in film, obviously. Um, if it hasn't already been made clear, I think what has been um, proven to be really, in a lot of ways, absolutely essential. But the idea that so many people today in this day and age are for the first time being able to tell their own stories is a powerful thing. And it comes in so many kinds of different shapes and sizes. The film that we just watched, I think, coupled together, had so much of the kinds of themes that a lot of the films that we've seen these last few years have been exploring. But on a technical level, I think to me it also had something of a requirement that really makes for a powerful experience. And that is the idea that the director of a film is more than just a stagehand, is more than just there to give guidance or hold a camera or to say what's yes in the movie and what's not in the movie. I think ultimately people need to understand that the best examples of what a director can contribute to a film is their entire essence of who they are and who they've been. And that starts with the beginning of their stories. And a lot of the best films that we've seen in these last few years have come from exactly those kind of artists who, in many of those cases, are finally being given the spotlight to tell the world who they are. And that is, and again, it doesn't always come across in the exact same way. And in fact, it shouldn't. It should come across in very different ways. And I think especially what I said last week with David, we did a I guess a re-review of Turning Red because we had both seen it in the theater because it's the special engagement, whatever you want to call it. And I think what I if I recall correctly, what I told David was that particularly with Pixar or for animated films, but not really also. I think for any kind of film. I think it also works for any genre, blockbuster, even a horror film. Damn it, I don't even care at this point. It is tantamount to the success of your overall project, of your overall film. If you get somebody who conducts the entire project from an auteur perspective. And what does that mean? It means that the director is being given the opportunity to actually infuse the essence of who they are into the story. And I think when you see Turning Red, for example, you see Domichi. When you see Luca, you see Enrico Casarosa. When you see Elemental, as we just did, you see Peter Sohn. I think, to me, before having watched this film, Peter Sohn was just this animator who also happened to have had directed The Good Dinosaur, which is a film that I think on the whole people have very mixed feelings on. There are people who adore it. There are people who don't care for it whatsoever in the least. And then there are people who kind of see both ends of the spectrum. You know, it wasn't really a film that made much of an impression for a lot of reasons. That really had nothing to do with the film, and then some reasons did have something to do with the film. But I think I really, and I think you can even also count Dan Scanlon in his film Onward.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it is proven time and time and time again, when you let people tell their own stories, that's why they always say, write what you know. When you tell the world what you have lived through, the world will begin to know who you are. And through that process, all of us who watch your amazing, beautiful work can begin to understand not just who you are and who you've been and all the people in your life, but we can begin to understand ourselves just a little bit better and the world a little bit better. And so much of the art, so much of the great pieces of film that we're seeing these last few years has been speaking to this. I think a lot of us, I think when we think of cinema, we think of gaining something out of this. I think what we hope for anyway is to gain something out of an enriching experience. And I think I can speak for all of us here with what we just watched was absolutely that. We all, I think, gained a little something. And I think we all kind of worked through a lot of feelings. Having watched what we just watched, I don't even have to say what I think I felt about it. It's pretty obvious, but in case it wasn't so, because I understand that reading films can be difficult for people, evidently enough. By the way, if anybody out there is like saying, well, why did Sony make Madam Web? Because you watched fucking Venom. What else? Because you made Venom a hit. I'm sorry, I had to work this in there somehow. You made Venom a hit, and guess what happened? We got Morbius and we got Madam Web. And I haven't seen a single person make the argument that those were personal stories to those. And by the way, they were the same writers, Morbius and Madam Web. So no surprise there. I shouldn't have to say it, but I think it's pretty obvious that for various reasons, I absolutely loved the film. And I think to me, what made it such a treat, and I say that meaning that it's not something you're so used to seeing, is a completely fully fledged romantic story at the center of it, where you actually feel the romance. Go figure. Because a lot of films these days can be very hit and miss when it comes to that department. There are films that attempt to do that. When they do, a lot of films don't even bother having done that. And I think in the last 10 years especially, there's been more and more notice that people have taken in the idea that in a lot of mainstream films, a lot of the romance has been sucked out of it. When you think of the MCU, the most romance you can think of is Tony and Pepper, for the most part, because they were the most outwardly romantic. I mean, you can, and I'll also make a note for Peter Quill and for Gamora. And that one was because, well, James Gunn knows how to make movies, and he knows that probably should be an element that people would want to see on the screen. Whereas you can't get any more mainstream than the MCU, and a lot of what they've been doing, and I will say it's not on purpose, it just happens to be that way, and they've influenced everybody else, that certain elements, certain story beats, certain styles in filmmaking have kind of been flushed out because of how popular the Marvel theme park is. And a lot of the romance, a lot of the really personal love stories have kind of just been dwelled out. And you can also correlate that with the demise of romantic comedies and just those kind of films in general at the box office. And you can also link that to the downfall of all films not making as much money as well. Again, all of it's linked. It's the destruction of society. It's what we have been saying the entire way through. But there is something really special about seeing a story like this in this day and age, especially when it's in this medium as well. There are, of course, you can look for animated films that have a romance story at the center of it. But I also have to commend Pixar for this. And by the way, just about 2 hours ago or so, I was completely trashing one of the recent, all of us really trashed one of the recent projects, Lightyear, as being completely empty, devoid of meaning, devoid of purpose, and absolutely failing at being anywhere near entertaining. You can't fail worse than that. Now with Elemental, it reminded me a lot like Soul in a not that they share like overt similarities, but I think to me one of the striking impressions I had while watching Soul was how much of it was very much not geared toward the youngest of audiences. Now, of course, the animation medium and Pixar films are in the business of making films that, for the most part, appeal mostly to children, and that can have an appeal to older audiences. But I think to me, Elemental and Soul, particularly as of late, and you can also put an Up in there as well. I feel when you watch the movies, you feel like they're made for an older audience in mind, and I in a way I did have a little bit of that impression in the trailers. But watching this film, I was completely sucked into it. I was so into the relationship here that I at some points was just like, holy shit, I'm watching a movie. Like I forgot I was watching a movie at some points. This is another example of a film being released in a landscape that was not at all welcoming toward it and not at all willing to have an honest conversation about this. It is a crime that we couldn't all collectively have experienced this together because of the decisions and incompetent performances of people and projects that came before this, and then whatever reasons have you there. And I feel ultimately, having watched this and understanding what the quality of this is now, it makes a lot of sense why this one was actually successful to an extent and actually made a penny. It made actually a couple of bucks all over the world, because this story is a universal story.
Mm-hmm.
It would be really hard for people who like to watch movies to watch this and feel like they were cheated on any level. Absolutely satisfactory. Very much moved me. I loved both of these leads. The whole cast, honestly, was great. There's not enough to be said about the striking visuals. The fact that it even exists, like still, I mean, remember back 10 years ago or so, keep in mind, of course, I'm still thinking of 23 as the year that we're in. So I'm thinking of MU. When Monster University came out, one of the big things that everybody was talking about was Sully's fur, or even the year before that, Merida's hair in Brave.
Mm-hmm.
Those are like big like achievements in what animation was able to manufacture. The leaps and bounds of which we've moved in just a decade into the future. I mean, this I'm sure cost a lot because, geez, just the detail of the flames, the detail of the water. This was great. This was genuinely a great movie, and I am feeling the way that I usually feel when I discover things that I'm very much aware of the fact that are usually either ignored, dismissed, or forgotten about. This is the film that I had said that I literally forgot existed, and I cannot believe I didn't watch this in a theater. This is crazy. Yeah, a lot of different emotions. You even saw me literally like cover myself because there was a sequence in there that was absolutely awkward, which we know we see in a lot of movies. Happy Valentine's Day. This is like perfect for that as well. I kind of ran the gamut there a little bit, but that's just my initial feeling of it. Yeah. You guys speak.
For me, specifically in animation, it's last year. It's Spider-Man and then Elemental. And then I haven't seen 2 of them, but the rest for me come afterwards. And I understand why Boy and the Heron is being talked about. I'm not saying it's a bad movie, but I think Elemental should be the one that people are talking about.
Especially because, you know, Elemental is a film that's designed to appeal to the heart. I mean, to be fair, it did get the nomination.
It did.
Unlike some other
But
person.
it just feels like it's not part of the conversation.
Well, because it never has been. The only part of the conversation this film has ever managed to become look, you have to understand the environment that we're in. This is why it's not even fair. The same way, and I know we texted about this earlier this week, the same fucking way was that Chloe Zhao and everybody on the Eternals team were completely blindsided about what happened. The landscape was not optimal in the time that the film was released. If Eternals had come out even a year before, that reaction that it got eventually would be completely different. Marvel was on the way down at that point. Eternals gave them the excuse to say all of the things they've been meaning to say for years and not really anything with what the film was discussing or talking about. And still to this day, and that's a film we should consider doing something like this in the future, because I know particularly you and I, Alexis, have something of a fondness, a really strong fondness for that film, because I think it had so many different ideas and interesting ideas at that were percolating under the surface, and you know, really sold the film further, you know, in terms of just me liking it. Hearing Chloe Zhao speak about what her thought process was like with every single decision that was made was completely alien to the way that most of the people that are invited to direct Marvel movies do this. That, okay, yeah, it's like, oh, so you're going to shit on the director who actually took the mindset of making an actual film, but all the previous 20 films before the fact, which mostly were TV directors directing it like an episode of television, you were like, that was amazing. That was the best thing ever. And then when Eternals comes over and there's so many complicated things that it's trying to speak to, you're like, worst MCU film. And matter of fact, the MCU has been sucking for a while now. And let me tell you why it's been sucking for a while now. Those were the reviews for that film. Now, similarly, and we spoke to this at the beginning of this particular commentary when Elemental, both begin with an E, I'm getting confused. Eternals, Elemental. When Elemental came out last June, what was everyone talking about week 1? Bomb, underperforming, flop. It opened opposite the Flash. And of course, a live action Flash film was always going to do better than an original animated film by any studio. It just was always going to happen. Mind you, of course, even though it did happen, the Flash ended up shitting the bed in that department as well. I mean, it opened lower than literally everything else. So, and then the only other part where the film kept coming back into the discussion was when people were noticing and looking at the numbers, like, oh shit, Elemental's still here, and it's still, you know, every little week trickling a little bit up. Oh, it's making some money here. That's something to talk about. So it forced people to acknowledge its existence by doing that. And I think that speaks to how much people were connecting with the film. And it also speaks to something David has been saying, and you have been saying, Alexis, for a couple of months now when we're having these discussions about what brings people to the movies. Word of mouth. Word of mouth is even more important now than it was before, you know? And I'm beginning to believe that even more so, because in the 2010s, the decade that we just 4 years ago left, what really mattered most was the power of a brand. And don't get me wrong, the power of a brand still matters a lot, but it's meant so much less these last few years, especially coming off of last year, and going into this year. What matters the most now is word of mouth. And I think that's what made this a hit and made this something that made people want to go and see. Now, as far as the critical community at large, it never caught on. And I think ultimately a lot of the reviews, they didn't. To be honest, I don't even remember even reading a single review. But I just know the reaction wasn't beloved, and it didn't help that there was this narrative that, you know, well, was it around that time that the director of Lightyear was fired? There was a lot of shaking up happening at the time that was in the news that really was revealing to the populace at large that Disney was just like failing all over the place. So you just it was added onto the bonfire for a lot of people. Again, some critics even used this as an opportunity to take further digs at other things that were not really with this film. And we need to stop doing that, because when there are legitimate wins, when there are things that we want that are worthy of our time, we should give it that acknowledgement, despite where it comes from or who releases it ultimately. But at the same time, again, I spoke to the fact that it was overshadowed by so many bigger films when it was released. Speak of animation, I mean, you had a Hayao Miyazaki movie that came out last year, and you also had Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse that came out last year. Just those two things.
They came out around the same time too.
You're right.
Yeah, I think it was the same week.
Well, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse was released, I think, the first week of June, but I think it was 2 weeks after The Flash might have come out. I think it was 2 weeks after The Flash came out, and then Elemental came out. But it's still relatively close to each other. It's the same time. So again, Across the Spider-Verse had other advantages where it was a sequel to a very successful film, Into the Spider-Verse. And then Wish came out, and Wish kind of left the stink everywhere you looked for various different reasons. And so by the time we get to the end of the year, who's even thinking of Elemental except for the people who've seen it and actually took it as something that was worthy of remembering? I certainly would have remembered Elemental had I seen it like you two did in the theater. I didn't, and I forgot it existed.
Yeah. I love it. I love it so much. And you know, I love like how you were saying in the beginning that I mean, it's basically like our generation are now telling, you know, their stories. So like things like Encanto and stuff, like it just means so much. And this one really like it was a little intense at the movie theater.
It's a little intense for sure, because I think like, and again, I don't also mean to suggest that this film can't work with kids. Of course it can work with kids. It's very watchable.
I remember while we were watching it, I remembered we went to go see it because my coworker's kid loved this movie.
Oh really?
She loved Ember. Good. Yeah, and she was like, yeah, we went. I think this was like the first movie that her daughter went to go see at the movies, and she sat like the whole time.
Mm-hmm. I think it's very accessible for kids. However, I do feel, and I think all of us will agree on this, there are pretty big swaths of the relationship dynamics that will land as it absolutely is intended to, in the way that it should, for people who are older.
Mhm.
I think a lot of those heart gut punches, literally every line that Wade said, let's be real. I think you feel the weight of that when you're our age.
Yeah.
Versus if you're a kid. Not that you can't enjoy it, but there's I think a lived experience, and not just with the romantic stuff as well. You were saying throughout the film that there were a lot of little things that were dropped here and there that all of us found relatable for various different reasons. I mean, we're all around the same age, but we also have very different professions. And yet, somehow, we found
We all understood.
not just in our professional, we not only saw our professional environments being mirrored, but we even saw echoes of our home environments being mirrored here as well. So, this is how we heal. I think, Eddie, this is how we
By
begin to
acknowledging
do
these
that.
things, by understanding that, like, also, I'm gonna cry.
Oh my God.
Just like you're not alone in like feeling these things.
I mean, one of the first things
I
that
just
Wade,
love this movie so much.
one of the first things that Wade said in the film was like, "I was drowning before I met you." Great screenplay, honestly. But it's like that's exactly what I mean.
And there's just like there's so much. Like, obviously, yes, we have like the love story, but then we have the immigrant story. We have the like I mean, she's obviously poor and Wade's rich. Like, we have that going on.
The
Like,
divisions of
it's just
class. We also had a little, well, not a little, well, yeah, we had a good amount of the what's the right term here? Not necessarily segregation, but very much
yeah.
a lot of the approach that Zootopia took with Predator and Prey might be what was a lot
prejudice.
Yes, prejudice. Because nowhere in the film was like, oh, they were not. Well, technically, there was a place where they're like, no fire people allowed, which was like, that's bad. Very, very bad. And then, of course, we have the inner biases that, like, even while the dad is trying to be happy, he still is repulsed at seeing Wade and Ember kiss.
Yeah, like that line where Ember calls out the dad and is like, he's a person. Like,
yeah,
the dinner scene where
the
Wade,
dinner, yeah, Wade's parents,
yeah, or I think it was his uncle who was like, your accent's really good or something like that, and just the look on his face of just pure disappointment at him. This was actually kind of funny for me, but
yeah, because again, and the thing is, a lot of people that age, or parents' age, that generation, mostly on the whole, seems to have a hard time realizing how what they intend to be compliments
are not
backhanded backhanded compliments, which is really a freaking insult. It's an insult disguised as a compliment. The idea of like, oh, you're really good at this. What they're really saying is, wow, I had no idea people of your kind could be really good at this.
Oh yeah,
that's everywhere.
And that's like with like it's so hard to like live with that sometimes, because it's like, and then especially like if it comes from our parents, because it's, I mean, I don't know about you, but for us it's always been like, don't talk back, like, you know. So it's just like, that's hard sometimes to kind of deal with and try to maneuver your way around it sometimes.
Yeah, I think all of us as kids kind of are like, well, we have to listen to them. But I think over the years, we talk back all the time. At this point, there's so many things I've called out, like there's shit on, and I'm like, not to be mean about it, but I kind of want them to be thinking about that, because I was like, there was even a discussion, not a discussion, but there was one discussion that made me think of several things throughout the years that just never really like sit right with me. And this is not something that is like really, really bad, but it's like one thing I've noticed, in casual conversation and in passing, is one of the immediate features that my parents seem to be on their priority list of things that they notice first. I guess that's
their weight.
Oh, that could be one of them, but I think it's more of beauty.
That's ours.
Beauty. Like, there have been many times where I've like overheard conversations of like, oh, this person's ugly, or that person, no, he's not as ugly as the other one. And I'm like, while they're watching a show, and I'm like,
why?
Is that really how you are absorbing the storytelling that's going on here? Is like, that's what I just walk away at that.
Ours are always, oh, they've lost weight. Oh, they've gained a little weight, huh? And yeah, I don't know. It's hard because, like, especially like me and my mom, we have the same kind of fuse, I guess.
You have the same buttons.
Yes, and that's why, like, the whole thing with Ember like exploding and stuff like that, like, really hit me, because like that's literally me. And trying to kind of find a way to communicate with my mom has been like a journey in itself. And it's just like,
for a lot of people, I'm sure. A lot of times it can feel like you're talking to a wall here. But I do think, though, what is particularly encouraging that I have felt myself, I have seen myself, not just in my family, but in other families, but also on the screen. And it's something that Peter spoke to, I believe. I'll never forget where he said it. And a lot of the stories that we've been watching kind of clicked into place. When we walked out of Everything Everywhere All at Once, in April of 22.
My dad not understanding the movie.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. But is that really as bad as in my view, asinine comparison somebody on this show made between that movie and Turning Red? Did it click?
Yes.
It didn't click, David?
I can't remember his comments, but I know the person you're talking about. I remember their comments on Encanto.
Well, yeah. that's a different situation. I mean, that led to the cancellation of one of the shows, apparently. I had nothing to do with that, and my lawyers will attest to that. The point is, not the point is, but what I meaning, the comment was the comparison in terms of how generational trauma was handled in one film in comparison to the other, and how, for whatever reason, those two films specifically needed to be compared to each other, and through that process of comparison, one was deemed inferior and therefore kicked to the curb. So I don't know which comments were worse, but the point of Everything Everywhere All at Once is what's happening, I think, across the world, which was that generation is beginning to really come to terms with the forced hand that they had to take, that they had to just take a lot of the notions, a lot of the abuse, a lot of the accepted norms of society. They had to take it, and they didn't have a say. And what they ended up doing was, because they were told they had no say, they just ended up repeating all of... Now, to be fair here, this isn't just because we're speaking about this in negative terms, does not mean that the whole of people are completely bad. We don't live in that
Mm.
kind of world. That's not what life is. However, there's always good with bad. There's always bad with good. That's how these things work. And through what generational trauma means is you are passing down the things that scarred you to your very own children. Without you even realizing you're doing that. Or worse, maybe for the boomers, very well realizing they were doing that. And that's how it had to be because that's how it was for them. But I think what's happening here is that there's actual communication happening. And when communication happens, when you begin to talk about your experiences, when you begin to tell people how you fucking feel, then you can heal. Go figure.
Yeah.
So that's ultimately, and again, this is why one of the thoughts that popped into my mind right now when we were talking about all these amazing animated films that are like, in many ways, from the standpoint of just communication, in the spirit of communication, in the spirit of reconciliation, among the best ever made animated films. How lucky are these kids who are growing up and seeing these stories? Because not that we didn't have some of those, but it was far more constrained and it wasn't as exposed. And you can't compare the animated films that they have now to what we had for various different reasons. But what this generation has in animated films is this thread of connected themes. And they're learning these lessons.
Yeah.
Hopefully before they experience it themselves, how we ended up doing or experiencing. Because a lot of the things that we experience in our lives, we didn't have a representation of that conflict on screen to know what to do, but these kids do. These kids do. There is so much good that can happen when people are allowed a language, a vocabulary on how to handle circumstances, situations like those. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, like understanding that like it's okay to have big feelings and learning, and like these will give some teachings of learning how to deal with them and learning that like you're not alone in dealing with all of this, you know? David, you haven't spoken.
He likes to listen to people talk. We talked about this last podcast too.
Yeah.
You'll be hosting to it.
No, I mean you guys pretty much said everything. But I mean, my thoughts about it. You said it, Soto. I'm just really happy that someone can tell their story like this. You know, that all but kinds of people can just tell their own stories now, and we're actually getting different stories. I mentioned this in the podcast, but like, you got people on the internet complaining of like, what is it, like the words exactly? Basically, like, for one thing, they complain when like studios now want people of color, people of like different races, like putting in the forefront, even though they think like, oh, well, but what if they don't have the talent for it? It's like some of them do. Calm the fuck down. And they just have this complaint of like, oh, but shouldn't stories be connected to everyone and all that? It's like, yes, but they don't have to be told in the same way. They can be told differently. They can be told from other people's perspectives. And I'm just really glad that we get this, because like this is from someone else's perspective, someone else's like literal life story being told, and we all connected it, even though, you know, people
we don't live his life.
We don't live his life. But you know, when Turning Red came out, people were complaining like, oh, I don't believe that some parent would let their little kid run the store or run a like be part of their job and all that. It's like, no, people did. And it's like, we never did that specifically, but like we still connected that we love the relationship between Amber and her dad and all that. Like that's the most important part. It's not about like the realistic parts of it.
I mean,
that they run
I
the
did
shop.
that. I did that with my mom. You
Oh yeah,
know,
you
she
did
would take
that.
me yeah, she would take me
That took you
to
to
work
work.
with her. Huh?
So did that.
Yeah, like things like that. It doesn't have to be at that level, but you know,
Hmm.
we still did experience that. And it wasn't like, I mean, obviously for them it was kind of out of necessity and it wasn't for us, but like we still did that. We still, you know, they still kind of um were like, "Oh, like look at us, like we're working hard. You have to work hard too." And that's essentially like what it is, you know.
Hmm.
So it's and it goes with what you're saying, like even though it's not like a broader thing, other people can still connect to it,
Hmm.
and it's just one different point of view basically.
Hmm. But yeah, I I love the story. I really did like the love story too. I know I can't complain. Like in the trailer, like it made it look basic and all that. But it's like no, this is actually pretty kind of unique in a way that I really couldn't have imagined it myself. And everything else is just great. The world itself, Wade is the best character. I think we could argue with that.
Yes. There's a lot to be said for that as well. To add on something that you were saying, David, about this whole idea of people having the inability to comprehend why it would be important to um, look at other people's stories. And I promised I'm gonna do my very best to say this without blowing up. I can't make any promises, but just strap yourselves in. We're gonna get there right now. Did it ever occur to these people? Well, I already answered my own question. Of course, it didn't occur because to many of these people, there are no problems in the world. Why? Because these problems don't affect them. So if problems don't affect you, do they exist? Not for you, but they exist for everybody else. And you see that. But do you care? No, because they're not you. And you're fine. And you're benefiting from the way things are. That's the way privilege works. Okay? And there's literal, like it's a literal like Bible of science to back up this the research done into showing what happens, the case studies that have been done, where so much of the material, whether it be literature, whether it be art, literally anything, right? So much of it is dominated by the dominant group in power, right? In Earth, that group happens to be people who are Caucasian. You are all in that group. The overwhelming majority of the people in that group benefit from the way things are right now, largely because that group are the people who have made the world the way they are right now. They are the ones who wrote the rules. They are the ones who wrote the history books. And of course, conveniently left out all the parts that made them look like Nazis. Um, and to be before anybody clips this out, I'm not calling the dominant group Nazis. What I'm saying is people who are used to having everything revolve around them, seeing endless stories, reading endless books, seeing endless movies, hearing endless songs, where people who act, talk, and look like them are constantly the center of attention. When you are coming of age in the world and you're constantly shown that people who resemble you the most are the ones that matter the most, when you get to stories that focus on other groups of people, you're going to feel weirded out, which is like, well, wait a minute here. Where are the white people? Where are the people? Where's the main? Where's the boy? Where's the main character? Where is he, not she? That's also a big difference there too. The reality is, this is one of the things, in my view, that makes empathy such a hard thing to do. The lack of empathy is honestly, you could just say it's the whole ball game. It's kind of the whole reason why the world is as fucked up as it is right now. It's the lack of empathy. One of the best teachers I ever had in my life said that the most important word in the history of our history is tolerance, because so much of the collective human race has had a sufficient lack of tolerance toward everyone. So much of history on this planet has been absolute destruction, devastation, mass genocide, the likes of which you wouldn't dare to dream. And they've all been predicated on the idea that we have to destroy the other. We have to vanquish them, because how dare they exist and not be how we are? Ultimately, that's how things work, have worked in this country. Now, we can say that we've evolved to an extent, I guess. I mean, there's a genocide happening right now. Well, not just one, there's several happening right now at the moment. But overall, to this specific lens, this is what makes empathy kind of impossible for people who are at the top and are used to having everything reflect who they are, right? It's like when you are seeing your own story on screen, it's reflecting back your life. But if you're seeing somebody else's story, you're looking at a window into somebody else's life. And to me, what I have always loved so much about films is, you know, it's not just telling us, oh, how great we are. We're getting to live somebody else's experience. We're getting to find out so much more about who they are and who and where they came from and how much they've lived and all of these different things that we can't possibly ever understand because we're not them. That's why Roger Ebert has always said that machines were great, or that movies were great machines for empathy. But again, why have movies maybe also another reason why movies have kind of come on the decline is because empathy has gone on the decline. All over the place, you see it in all of our lives. The capacity to care about another living human being's experience, that's becoming a luxury. It is becoming fashionable to not give a flying fuck about whether the person next to you has enough to eat, if they have a place to stay. In fact, if they don't have a place to stay and if they're homeless, you're often consumed with, well, can they go fuck off somewhere else instead of ruining the atmosphere and environment and bringing down the mood where we live? You're not concerned. We're not thinking about like, gee, maybe we should come together and find a place for them where we can actually live and they can have a successful life. That doesn't come close to mind. I can go on this
It's
rant.
more so, what can we do to move them?
Exactly.
To get them out of here.
And I can go on this rant anywhere you want. And I'll never forget how in COVID, and in COVID the quarantine was a very traumatic time for all of us. But there was some positive stories that came out in the world. Look at how pollution went down in Los Angeles because nobody was able to drive. Did anybody care? No. No one cared about that. Okay. Granted, there were other things to be concerned about at the time. I understand that too, but that was something to take note of. That it could be done.
Yeah.
There was a governor in America, I forget which state. Obviously, it was a Democratic governor. You know what he did? He canceled everyone's medical debt in the state. But wait a minute, I thought that couldn't be done. Oh, wait, no, it can. You don't want to do that. Oh, okay. So much about how the world works is understanding that a lot of that comes from the fact that many people were raised to believe that compassion is not a thing that really concerns you. Remember, Alexis, when we watched The Crown season 4, Margaret Thatcher laughed at in the TV show, mind you, but there's very much a mirror of the real person herself, where she basically laughed at the idea that compassion was something that should be even considered. There was even a conservative that I saw on a video this week talking about what's going on in Palestine, Israel, all that stuff, saying like, why are people even taking into account morality and compassion? Which is why war exists. When you don't consider morality, when you don't consider compassion, that's what allows perpetual warfare and devastation to happen. That's the kind of mentality that allows for war to even fucking exist, which it shouldn't anymore. It shouldn't have existed in the first place, you know? And to think that we have a whole, like, I'm not gonna say that, okay, group of people, groups of people who want to teach children stories in which groups of people are literally at war with each other because they think differently. That's not a good look. I said so much there, and bringing it back to what I was saying originally, which is, if you are constantly told the world is about you, you're going to think it is all about you. And the thing that you have to fix, if you have these issues, like, why am I being forced to sit through other people's stories? It's not about you. That's the nice way of saying it. My way of saying it is, fuck you. If you think for a single second all of existence should be catering to your ass, get out of your own ass, look around, and give a shit about the person that's next to you, the people who have less than you, for just one goddamn minute. That's my way of saying it. But to be nice, I'll say, it's not about you, sweetie. It's not about you. It's about all of us, the collective. You know? Now, if I remember correctly, there were some of these groups who let's say, have a spirituality that, in theory anyway, are based on the idea of the good for the collective. However, they don't practice any of that, and they're far more concerned with exclusion. They're far more concerned with hatred. I could keep going all night. I'm not going to go. I'm going to stop right there. And the thing is, what David was, even just like, look, we're just hitting new lows every time, especially with the entertainment industry, right? Like, I even saw the same Geeks and Gamers crowd. They're jumping up and down. They're celebrating because Madam Web is failing. Why? Because they hate women. And any project that has a female at the lead, particularly a blockbuster project that has a female on top, they have to constantly remind everybody that they want them to fail. And they will celebrate when they fail. Why? Because they're sexist. At least they're honest about it. Well, I guess not really. I mean, they don't actually say that they're sexist. That's not true. That's not true. Never mind.
They maneuver their way around it.
They'll make fun of them, but then say, "But we're not sexist, though," as if like that somehow negates what they just did.
When you have to do this whole, but that says more than what comes after that.
Yeah. Point is, stories like these remind us that it's important to share all of our stories with each other, because we are all enriched by being exposed to everyone's experience, to everyone's stories. And even more to the point, specifically to just the prism of cinema, it is important for people to see themselves and their lives be acknowledged, that they exist, and that other people know who they are. It's not a lot to ask. And yet, anyway, No, look, we said it during the commentary also, but I think from the character design to the personalities to the voices, um, this film would not work if it weren't for how great of a job they did with our two leads here, with Ember and with Wade. I know their names at the end of the movie. That's a big thing. It's a big deal. Sometimes it's hard to remember names. When you first watch a movie, mind you. And I'm very, very happy that Peter Sohn was able to tell his truth, basically, in this story. And I think the most beautiful part about that is by him sharing his truth, a lot of other people will be empowered to share their truths. And that way we can begin to heal so that it doesn't happen again.
Hopefully.
Now, on the love side of things, I have this beautiful quote from Zoe Rose Bryant, who said that watching this when you're single is worse than being waterboarded.
She's not wrong. Oh God. That's too much.
Yeah. Who is this? Johnny Sosbeck. Johnny Sobczak. Truly stunning animation, solid humor, and heartfelt story beats, all wrapped up in Thomas Newman's eclectic score. I feel bad for not giving this a chance in theaters, but I'm glad it ended up being a hit. One of the most pleasant surprises of 2023 for me, and frankly, the best Pixar flick in years. High praise indeed.
Actually, my probably one little complaint about this movie is the score. Something about it just doesn't grab me. I don't know.
Now, can I ask you a question? Did you feel that way the first time?
I didn't really notice the score the first time. It was basically what you said. You don't notice it as much the first time. If you notice it more, you definitely notice it more the second time on the movie, which doesn't really mean that it's bad if you notice it on the second time. It's just what you said. You're more engrossed with the story. I remember noticing it the first watch on Boy and Heron, and Spider-Verse, where they somehow the score and the story itself worked together, blended well together, and all that. This one didn't, and I noticed it on the second watch that it just kind of it just basically got louder on certain moments, and just to kind of enhance certain scenes that didn't have any dialogue in it, and so, which you should do for a score with the score and all that, but I don't know. I feel like it just didn't really blend well with the whole story and all that. Just mostly just added in for certain scenes, and that's it.
There were a couple of moments here where I enjoyed the music. I'm not sure if this is one of the better scores. I know a lot of people really did love the score. As you know, at some point I am going to listen to it on its own, and I'll get back to you how I feel ultimately. I would say that ultimately there were positive thoughts in the score, but at the same time, I'm not here thinking that it's perfection. I'm not of that viewpoint. So yeah.
It had the lowest opening weekend in Pixar history.
It did. That being said, though,
it had a good comeback.
It made more money than Encanto, Strange World, Wish, Lightyear. Now, in some ways, you could say that's not saying much, but still, I mean, it came out in the middle of all those train wrecks, basically. From a box office standpoint, I know Encanto is universally great, but I just mean from a box office performance, it wasn't great, clearly. No, I just think it's a really unique film at the end of the day, and I'm very happy that Pixar um, gave Peterson the opportunity to tell this story. And I think, I think the more removed we are with these recent features, I am of the view that perhaps there is far more substantive things to look at about Jennifer Lee's leadership at Disney Animation. I think there are some things that we may want to look at and reevaluate where we're at, because something there is not jiving. At the same time, I don't think Pete Docter should be lumped into that same category, because Lightyear notwithstanding, everything else Pixar related for the most part has been really, really good.
Yeah.
And yet Bob Iger just came in here and it's like Zootopia 2, Frozen 3, Toy Story 5, Inside Out
I just
2,
feel
Moana
like
2.
she is being a yes man. Because like I truly do believe that she went in with all these ideas. I mean, we talked about in the beginning of obviously 2020 and then everything else happened. I just feel like they're not giving her a chance. And
Yeah.
because of COVID, it's just kind of like we need to like fix this. Especially because it's Disney animation. Like that's their big,
Well, let's look at those films. The last release was Wish, disaster. The film before that was Strange World. Nobody remembers that movie existed. The movie before that, Encanto, huge hit, and a great film. Now this is where it's getting a little scary, because we can go back to Encanto. Before Encanto, we had Ralph Breaks the Internet, Raya and the Last Dragon, Frozen 2, not in that order, mind you. Moana, Zootopia. We can just stop there. Look, in the 2010s, you went from Tangled, to Wreck-It Ralph to Frozen, then Zootopia, Moana, which came out in the same freaking year. Like you had hit after hit after hit, and these were genuinely great movies. And then we came at a little bit of a crossroads. First was, I believe, Ralph Breaks the Internet. And Ralph Breaks the Internet is by no means a bad movie, but it's by no means a very memorable movie. And it very much gave off the impression of a sequel that was greenlit just to make money, just to print money, and no one genuinely wanted to make the film. And I think you can tell because that was obviously of a lesser quality than anything else that was around it. Frozen 2 came out, it was a big hit, and most of us really loved it. And then some of us downright despised it. Move past that one. Then after that, Raya and the Last Dragon, of, I guess, mixed to positive quality from most standards. Didn't really have a theatrical play, so it didn't make any money. Then came Encanto, didn't make any money, had a big streaming sensation. But I think what's really weird in the way that Disney animation, particularly Disney animation, after Encanto, the quality just falls off a cliff. Like, how do you go from Encanto to Strange World and Wish? Like, David, you've seen Wish and you've seen Encanto. How wide is that? How wide is that chasm of quality between Encanto and Wish?
Big, especially with the animation itself. I mean, I'll give them this. They were trying to experiment, I guess, with the animation and all, but it just didn't really work so well. So hopefully in time maybe they can refine what they were trying to do. I think they were trying to go for like a watercolor background, make it look like an old storybook and all that, but they weren't blending it well with the CG characters. You know, basically trying to do the whole Puss in Boots Spider-Verse type of animation and all that. And then in terms of the story, I mean, didn't really. I don't know. I mean, they were trying to tell like a pretty okay story and all that, but the characters themselves just weren't really that memorable. So yeah, that's the problem right there.
Mm-hmm. And I think Pixar only had the one, Lightyear. Lightyear was a, but then again, what connects Lightyear to Ralph Breaks the Internet? Oh, that's right. Zootopia 2, Moana 2, Toy Story 5, Frozen 3, yada, yada, yada. Bob Iger, I don't know if you're a professional dumbass these days, but I think it's pretty clear to see where this is going. We all see it. You're not able to see it. And one of the things that I'm pretty confident will be remembered as one of the most desperate decisions ever made. And Alexis, we didn't get to hear your thoughts of this because David and I did discuss this on the podcast we did last. But yeah, but basically, what do you have to say about them taking what was intended to be 6 episodes of a Moana TV series, retooling them into Moana 2? That is coming out
They know Disney
this
Plus
November.
is failing.
That's one of the takeaways for sure, right? Yeah, Disney Plus is failing. That's one of the takeaways. But my overall question was into, oh, that's fine, right? Like, that's obviously going to turn into an amazing movie, right? I don't think we've ever reached a level of this pathetic.
It's what they should do with all of their shows.
And
but
you know what?
Goosebumps got renewed for a second season, guys.
Hey.
That part makes it a little bit more maddening because every Disney Plus show supposedly has to be 6 episodes. But then they don't make TV shows. They just make them movies, but they're cut up into 6 episodes awkwardly. However, they did that also with Moana. They just have one large story and cut it up into 6 parts. That's not what a fucking TV show is.
It's like that one is crazy to me because it just you have all of these stories. Like Moana's just one of them. Why not make something different? Remember, that was like one of the things that we were talking about when Moana came out, that they have they get like the rights to like a bunch of like stories like that from different parts of the world. Where's that at? Why are you just gonna like keep this if you're not gonna like do something with it? But anyways, I love this movie. Everybody needs to go watch this movie. I'm glad you finally got to see it and understand why we've been talking about it this whole time. Now I'm gonna make everybody else watch it.
Well, they should. They should, and I think they'll find out for themselves that they've been missing out on something quite special.
Yes.
So yeah. Any last thoughts from anyone?
It is 1:30. We need to go to bed.
Wonderful way to
Oh,
close it. Yeah.
12:30 for you.
Oh yeah. Thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for many more things like this. My brain has literally turned off in the middle of that sentence, so we're just gonna say bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.